said, I'm going to test, and I'm going to look for fulfillment and pleasure, or sex, or projects, or riches, or money, or music. And when it was all said and done in chapter 2, there's no profit. When you put your hand to labor and you look, it was fun getting there, but when I got there, it was empty. And so now he's going to make some observations that he learned from this thing. And what we looked at last week is that famous passage in chapter 3, there's a time for everything. Time to live and a time to die. A time to give birth, right? All those things. A time to plant, a time to harvest. What is he? Pull up, all right? A time to gather stones, a time to throw stones. And so everything's appropriate in its own time. It's beautiful. And that's the first section. If you don't learn the timing of life on this earth, you're going to have problems. There's a time to do things, there's a time not. Tomorrow, as most of you know, and now Bruce knows, I'm going to Africa. And so at the same time, we've been trying to remodel our kitchen. And I had a goal in mind to get this much done, and some subs can come in while I'm gone and Ann's still here. And finally, it just got so stressful. I said, that's it. I called all the subs. I said, nope, we're pausing things until I get back. Why? It's just not the right time. You know, why go crazy over something that doesn't matter in the big picture, right? Well, my wife, I thought, could. And, you know, why stress her out? But do you need to learn that lesson? There's a time for Kelly to be here, which is now. Good to see you. And there's a time for you not to be here. So, no, their timing's important. So there's where we looked. And then at the end of the chapter, he gives us some observations when he asks the question, what is the profit? All right? And we just want to review that he said he's put eternity in our heart. In other words, as the clock ticks, are you going to figure out the right time for everything in this life? But do you realize the clock is ticking? And you want to find some fulfillment and satisfaction? Yes. But you'll never work it out. And it's done on purpose. So God's going to get you to look above the sun and start trusting in Him rather than in yourselves. But we all know that the clock is ticking. We know there's got to be more than this. And so we also see that He gave us a gift. And the gift of God is to enjoy your work and enjoy what the labor God has given you. And we're going to see later the proceeds that come from it. That's a gift, just to enjoy the moment. Now, too many people are thinking about the future and stressing out about what might be, and they fail to grasp just the joys of the present. Now, a lot of philosophy today is living in the moment, being present. Where does that come from? If there's truth to it, where does it come from? Right here, that you can't do anything about tomorrow. And know what the Lord said? He said, don't be anxious about tomorrow, but live for today, because today has enough problems of its own. So that's what we're seeing. Don't fail to enjoy what is, because you can't grasp what will be. We're always going to have questions. And then the last thing, he says, God's made it so that you have to fear Him. This is where we left off. He's made it so you can't figure it out. And as soon as you think you have it figured out, if I do this and this will happen, guess what will result? It won't work out that way. He just flips things around. So, for example, can you count on the weather on a yearly basis? No. Can you count on another person in life on a daily basis? No. Can you count on the government on a consistent basis? No. I mean, any aspect of life you can't count on, and God has set it that way so you don't fear government or poverty or people. The only one you need to fear is not life, but God. How many people fear life, though? They just run scared. They're running scared all the time. Well, what if this happens? And what if I don't have this? And what if I grow old and I don't get to enjoy this? Or what if? And he says, fear God. That's all that you got to do. And then you're going to have the ability to enjoy this life for what it offers on a daily basis. All right? Now, are these general rules or are they perfect rules for everybody? They're general rules, and with general rules, there's always exceptions. Some people will fear God and yet have a miserable life on this earth, right? And we can give examples of that. But that's generally the exception, okay? And so here he goes. He says, let's talk about justice and wickedness. And now we're in verse 16. And this will actually continue into chapter 14. So he's making these observations about the world that he's been looking at. Verse 16, furthermore, I've seen under the sun that in the place of justice, there's wickedness. In the place of righteousness, there is wickedness. Now I said to myself, God will judge both the righteous man and the wicked man. For a time for every matter and for every deed is there. And I said to myself concerning the sons of men, God has surely tested them in order to see that they are but beasts. For the fate of the sons of men or the fate of beasts is the same. As one dies, so dies the other. Indeed, they all have the same breath, and there is no advantage for man over beast. All is vanity. They all go to the same place. All come from the dust, and all return to the dust. Who knows that the breath of man ascends upward, and the breath of beast descends downward to the earth? I've seen nothing is better than man should be happy in his activities, for this is his lot. For who will bring him to see what will occur after him? Now, does it sound like Solomon has an obsession with death? He talks about it over and over and over and again. And here he's comparing now a beast of the field with your life. And he's saying, you've got it no better than the beast. Is he preoccupied with death? He is, all right? No, he's not. So why is he talking about it all the time? It's close?
Well, he's taking a look at it from a 100,000-foot view. There's birth and there's death. He's looking at the whole picture of life.
Okay.
Just as much as birth is part of life, so is death.
All right. So, again, when you look at your life on this earth, the clock's ticking, isn't it? Yes, you were born, but there's coming a point when what? It's going to end for everybody. So what he's trying to do is, what can I fill this section with? What kind of activity, what kind of work, purpose that will be meaningful? That I can look and say, yes, well done. And his answer consistently over and over is what? Nothing. When you put death in the equation, it's this great equalizer, and it's going to give you finally the right perspective about life. When you view life as not just this ongoing forever thing, and a lot of times we live that way, right? We think, well, we'll just be here forever. As you get older, people ask, where did it fly by? You know, and just all of a sudden they're down here the last couple of ticks, right? And that's too late often to be thinking about death back here because it's already gone. You wasted some of those times. And so death is not a preoccupation with him, but it's the event that causes you to look above the sun because you realize your life is so short on this earth that you need to plan for something else. Now, that's why he says, when it comes to justice, do we see this the case in any generation, any culture? Is there wickedness in the place of righteousness? Always, all right? There's a boy king in North Korea, right? Or a president. What's his name? All right. And so, sadly, that young man was in North Korea, was arrested and tortured, and then he was released. And 2 weeks after he was released, he died because of his torture in prison there. And, of course, we've seen his father, and I guess he's at the Olympics now, right? Which is, interesting. There's probably a political thing going on too, because South Korea is where the Olympics are, and right north of the border. And that boy president, his sister, is there at the Olympics as well. All right? So I'm saying all this. Is there injustice and evil in the world? I mean, this guy is oppressing his people. He lives in luxury, and yet his people are starving. Now, Americans generally don't know oppression. We don't know, well, like the rest of the world. I guess it's until you eat dirt to fill your stomach, you won't know what poverty and oppression is. And that's what happens in a lot of places in the world. They have to eat whatever's available, and they watch their children die because of starvation. In Zimbabwe, it's because of an 80-year-old president that just got rich off the backs of his people. And his wife took trips to Singapore, off the taxes of the people. And meanwhile, the people are starving. And there was an upheaval, and he's been ousted, but now there's probably going to be just some general in his place. Is there wickedness and oppression in the world? He says, I've seen it. I've seen it. Well, how are you going to make sense of this? How are you going to live with that without just going crazy? What's the next verse say? They're all going to die. And when they die, even though they've been living life under the sun as if there is no God, they will face God and have an accountability. Does that give some of us some degree of, okay, justice? God will seek vengeance, and he'll do a better job than we can. No one will escape the wrath of God for their life living on this earth. And that's the promise in Romans chapter 14. All will give an account of himself. And of course, in Hebrews, it says God will reap vengeance. Okay? Yes?
It's a sobering contact when you drive and you see these different beggars that are on the road and they're begging, and you look at it and you reflect, and at least I do. That could have been me, choices that I made, and I could be that person on that corner begging for things because of choices that I had made in my life.
Right.
And I think of that. And I'm not saying all of them are because of that. There are exceptions.
Right.
But with that being said, it makes you reflect and think about what am I doing with my life now? And how am I going to use my life now? And what is the greater end? What is the greater purpose?
Now, he's going to address that scenario later, but that really doesn't deal with, this is injustice inflicted on you by someone else. But you're exactly right, and he'll talk about that later in chapter 4. But these are people in poverty because of the corruption around them. You see the difference? Yes.
You're not him, but as if he had killed the body, there is no one that he can do what I will.
That's right.
Whom you shall cure.
That's right.
But after you kill the body, you will body and soul in the hellfire. Yea, I say unto you.
That's right.
Fear him.
All right. Every culture's had a cycle of good leaders and poor leaders. Someone else had their hand up? Yes.
It's not just leaders. I can think back to when grandparents, there was an accident, they were hit by a car, and that's what caused grandpa to pass a couple weeks later.
Yeah.
And the lady who did it, there seemed to be, maybe spent 6 months in jail for what happened when he took her life. And I looked at that time, and like, where's the
Justice. Yeah.
Where's the justice? And this was
Yeah.
the only comfort that
No, that's right.
I gotta leave it to you, even though there was that strong urge to want to take care of it yourself.
That's right. And just rest knowing God's going to take care of it. That's right. Now here it goes then back to men and beast, where we read this. He says he's tested us so we can realize we're no better off than the beast. Now, why would he say that? Again, he's viewing life on this earth as if there is no God or life after death. When you look at it that way, what happens to the cow out eating grass in the field? When he gets old, he dies, and his body just rots in the ground. So this guy works all his life, labors, and then leaves it to someone else, and when he dies, what happens to his body? It rots in the ground. What's the difference between the two at that point? Absolutely nothing. What good does his riches or his wealth or his fame or whatever do at that time? Nothing. And actually, who had the better life? The cow who just grazes all day long. Oh, it's a nice sunny day, and look at all this grass, green grass. Or the guy that's working, farming, and sowing the field and watering the field so that cow can eat the field. Who has the better life? Well, the cow. You know your dog has a better life than you, don't you? All they do is sleep and play and eat, all right? Okay. He says the fate is the same. As one dies, the other dies. And he says, this is vanity. It's vanity. If that's all there is on life, this is stupid. Now, you have to agree with that. And that's why I don't understand where people that say there is no God, we're just we're just evolved biological beings. Here's the beast in the field. We just happen to have more intelligence and involved because of the path of evolution that we took. But really, in essence, they're saying there's no difference between the two, right? And that's why you have to give animals rights, because they give us rights. That's where all this comes from. Okay, I'll give you that just for sake of discussion. What is your purpose in life? I want to ask you that. What are you here for? He says, well, to make a difference in the world. What does that mean? Because when you're dead, guess what? You're dead, and everyone you made a difference for, guess what happened to them? They died as well. What real value are you serving on this earth? And they can't give you one. Can't give you one. Because it's all about survival of the fittest anyway. And see, that's exactly what Solomon said. I've come to conclude. There's no real purpose for living. We're no better than the beasts of the field. In fact, they got it better off than we do sometimes. And so that's the sobering thing. That's why he looks at death there. And so there's nothing better, he says, just to enjoy some of your life under the earth. So now we're going to look at chapter 4. So here he's going to go back to this evils of oppression again and pick up that theme. So we're now in chapter 4, and I want to get through most of this. So bear with me here. Verse 1. Then I looked again at all the acts of oppression which were being done under the sun. And behold, I saw the tears of the oppressed. They had no one to comfort them. And on the side of their oppression was power, but they had no one to comfort them. So I congratulated the dead who are already dead more than the living who are still living. But better off than both of them is the one who never existed, who has never seen the evil activity that's done under the sun. Now, if we grasp this is really sad and can be depressing. All right? And you say, well, maybe this guy is advocating suicide and he's being suicidal himself. But it all starts, he looked again at the acts of oppression. He's looking. He is keenly aware of the evil that's done in the world. And then what is that accompanied by? I saw, what did he see? The tears. You got to feel Solomon's compassion for those who are being oppressed, because he's seen their tears and he knows that largely he can do nothing about it. Because he says what? They have nobody to comfort them. Now again, we have problems in our life. I'm not trying to minimize your problems in your life, but are they due to oppression generally? No, they're just life. Sickness or pain or cycles of the economy or the weather. Oppression is, like I say, when you get thrown in jail for nothing you did just because you spoke up or you stood for Christ. Oppression is when you're conquered by another people and you're made a slave and had to serve people for the rest of your life. You know, oppression is when you're taxed so much by an evil, government that you have no money left over to take care of yourself, much less your children. We don't know oppression. It comes from government. It comes from workers. It comes from the rich. It can come from the poor. What I mean, why would the poor oppress you? Because they're going to steal what you got, right? Oppression comes all over. And Solomon says, I've seen it. It makes me wonder what he's done for his own kingdom while he was king. Did he try to relieve oppression? Did he live as a righteous king? And was he there for the poor and the neglected? Because that's really what it means to know God and be a king. That's what God said to the king. It's to plead for the widow and the orphan, to take care of the most vulnerable in society. That was their role, and to protect the rest of people from invaders. But that was their job. And you wonder, did he do that? But you got to feel his heart. And when he sees that, and there's no one to comfort him, then he realizes, I congratulate the dead. Why would he say that? It can be so bad oppression that you're better off dead than living. Now, have you ever felt that way? Maybe sometimes in depression, but not oppression. Is it a difference? We can be depressing. Oh man, I don't even know if I want to live. Now, I understand that, but we're talking about being oppressed by others that it'd be better to be dead. Yes.
And we don't. I've had the blessing to speak to some people in this life who have suffered those great oppressions. A Holocaust survivor.
Yes.
A veteran who was in Japanese internment camps and on the death marches and this sort of thing. And we don't. And the tales they tell,
That's right. Don't have any idea. That's why he says the dead are better off than those who are still living. Now, that's not the case in America. It's hard to imagine that's the case for some people in the world. And it's even better for the guy that never lived. That's sad, isn't it? Who has never seen the evil activities done under the sun. I've heard people say about their kids, I don't know if I would want my children to have children, so they'll have to live in the coming generation. Because things are going from, in many ways, bad to worse. But in many ways, we have it so good still. But I've heard that. Anyone else have heard that or maybe said it? Because it's just an upside-down world. That's what he's alluding to. Why would you want to raise children, but we haven't seen anything like other places in the world, right?
This is very reminiscent of Job when he said, I cursed the day that I was, ever, nursed my mom. I wish I had never been born.
Yes.
It's the same type of mentality that Job was thinking.
Yes, so weary. That's right. Good example there. So when he says, Jesus said that of one person, who was that? Who did Jesus say it was better than you ever been born? Judas. It wasn't because of oppression, but it's because of the choices he made. A little different there. But that's a sad place to be. Now he goes, I've seen the labor and every skill which is done a result of rivalry between a man and his neighbor. So this is a guy that's working really doubly, triply hard because he wants to show up his neighbor. He wants to have accomplishment. And he thinks there's reward in that will give meaning to life before he dies. And that's what he says. This guy, he's got the skill. He labors hard. It's all pride, isn't it? Rivalry. Isn't that pride? The rise, trying to climb the ladders, really, it's a pride issue for most people. He said, it's striving after wind. The fool folds his hand and consumes his own flesh. Now, that's interesting. Here this guy's working really, 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 really hard. And the fool, what's he doing? Nothing, like a beast of the field, kicking back. But what does it mean he's consuming his own flesh? You know what that means? Yeah, he's starving himself. He's going to have an early demise because of his foolishness. So, are either extreme wrong? There's got to be some balance in the middle. It's interesting. The Japanese have a word, karoshi, which means death by overwork. That's what it means. And they have a work ethic It's demanded by their culture that you're not a responsible and a faithful person or a husband if you don't work not 40, 50, 60, but 80 or more hours a week. And they forget days off. And it got so bad there were 30,000 people that died a year. And the government had to make some type of retribution to the widows who were overworked. And my daughter-in-law, Ann and I, Cont'd, she didn't want to marry a Japanese because she didn't want to be a work widow, because that's what they are. They never see their husband. There's so much pressure, and they commit suicide because of this pressure to excel by working hard, to be honorable that way. And so Solomon says, I've seen that. I've been there. And he says, what is it? He's striving after win, because when you get there, have you found what you were looking for? That success, that contentment? No, it's still around the corner. You never get there. You're trying to chase the wind, and you can never grab it. Now, the lesson here is, seek contentment and not accomplishment. Is there a big difference? Can you find contentment in accomplishment? Yes, but not accomplishment for accomplishment's sake. But it's in contentment. Like today I worked hard and I did well. And when that job's done, I can look at, boy, that is nice. Let's move on to the next one. You find contentment every day in what you're doing and what you've done. But it's not accomplishment for accomplishment's sake to raise yourself above others. That's what he's saying here. And I like this. Well, it's the rat race, right? Happiness is where? Just around the corner. It's just around the corner. Buy more things. Earn more money. Keep going. Because it's always what? Around the corner. It's like tomorrow you'll find it. What's the problem with that statement? Tomorrow never comes, because when tomorrow is today, it's still tomorrow. There's always corners to go around. And Solomon said, I've tried that. Look up. Okay, enjoy today. Yes.
But we're supposed to work hardly as unto the Lord.
That's right.
That's our ministry, to show people that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing.
Well, exactly. Colossians 3 says, when you work heartily, but work as though you're working for the Lord, right? Right? But then in 1 Timothy chapter 6, he says, the love of money has ruined a lot of people, so be content with what you have. That's the secret of life, is being content today with what you have. Now, here's what it is. I won't be content tomorrow with what I have today, but I'm going to be able to be content today with what God's given me. Now, what do you mean? That seems contradictory. Does God want you to better yourself as you live through life? Yeah, progress, be faithful. He was faithful in a little, be faithful in a lot. He wants, good, faithful stewardship, that you grow and increase. Well, the person that says, until I have that, I won't be happy, cannot be content today, right? His contentment is it's the elusive goal that he'll never achieve. God says, be content today, but with the attitude, you're always going to get better. So 10 years from now, if I'm in the same place where I am today, will I be content? Should I be content? And 10 years from now, I look up here and I go, man, I'm in the same place that I was there. Have I wasted some of my life? Have I failed? See, that's what you're talking about. But I can be content today with what I do have. Well, there was a time that before I married Ann, when we were starting my own business, we had to open bean cans and heat them over the fire in the living room. That was our dinner, all right? But we were having a great time, my partner and I. It was fun. Like we're camping out in our living room. Here's this campfire. It was in the fireplace. Anyone been there? And can it be fun? Yeah. Now, if I was doing that now at age 60 with my wife, should I be content? No, unless things happen out of my control. I understand that. You understand? See what I'm saying? I'm happy today, but I wouldn't be happy where I am now 5 years from now. Yes?
Paul said, again, in Philippians 4, verse 11, that I speak in regard to thee, that I have learned in whatever state I am to be
Yeah.
How he's been in these situations. So Paul realized, as an apostle, that these kind of times come, but when they do come, you need to be content. And
That's right.
understand that God will provide. You just need to focus on Him.
And I like that text because he said, I've learned a secret. It's a secret. It's a secret that Solomon learned by looking at life under the sun and looking at, hey, it's going to be over. You're going to need to start living for today because it's going to be all gone pretty soon. Look at verse 4. Verse 7. Then I looked again at vanity under the sun. There was a certain man without a dependent, having neither a son nor a brother, yet there was no end to all his labor. He worked. Indeed, his eyes were not satisfied with riches, and he never asked, for whom am I laboring, and deprive myself of pleasure? So you get the picture? This guy's driven. He's a workaholic. He has no wife, no dependent, and he never stops and asks himself, who am I working for? And why am I working so hard and not enjoying some of the fruits of my labor? See, that's a gift of God. We're going to see later. Just enjoy some of the proceeds from all your labor. He never asks that. And Solomon's just shaking his head and says, that's just vanity. So here's a guy that's older. He's worked all his life. He's never established relationships. And he finds himself all alone. Is that perhaps the saddest state in your life, unless you're the most extreme introvert that you don't like people and you're happy to be in your dark room by yourself, eating by yourself, but that's probably a sad, sad picture. Solomon says, that's vanity. What a wasted life. Okay? Because when you die, he's already said, who gets everything that you've built? Someone you don't even know. They didn't work for it. They're going to enjoy it. So what's the lesson? Enjoy some of it right now yourself. That's your blessing in life. Who had their hand up? Yes.
Back to the previous thought about our motivation for change, our motivation. People are going to say later about envy. Is our motivation, is what we're doing because we envy others. We want to be the one on top of the barrel.
It's pride, though. Isn't envy really a matter of pride? That's right. Because there's always going to be someone better, smarter. That's right. Always. Yes. All right. So good. He never asked the question. And I wish so many people said, what are you doing this for? Why are you killing yourself? You are. Value friends and relationships more than riches. Because they're enduring and they will survive when the economy collapses. Friends and relationships, right? Riches not always will. So value those. Seek those more than anything that wealth can bring you. That's what he's learning, because without it, life's vain. So then he goes on to say, there are two. Here is why it's better. Because two are better than one. That's going to be his thesis for this paragraph. Two are always better than one. You get one guy that's alone, then you have a person that's with someone else. Every time, hands down, two are better than one. Okay? Now, the first reason is because they work harder. They have a better return for their labor. So that has to do with productivity. Can two people get more done than one person? As long as they're not killing each other on the job. So, I mean, you can get along and you're working together as a partner. Yeah, you can get a lot more done than one person by himself. It can be. And like sometimes you just can't lift something by yourself. I mean, you got to get some fulcrums and leverage and ropes, but if you have another person, you can carry it by yourself. How many times, Ann, do I ask you, help me? And she helps me, and I'm like, oh, it's so much better to have two rather than one. All right? Second of all, if one of them falls, the other one will lift up his companion. Like, duh. There was a picture in the paper, he was a logger, in Washington, and he was up there in the mountains, and he fell in a sinkhole while he was logging. The sinkholes aren't just in, Tampa, Florida. They're all around the world. And it was just a hole like 20 feet down. It was all just dirt and roots. And he tried to climb, couldn't get out. He was there 24 hours, and a good friend of his said, he drove up for work the next day. I like him. So he went out in the woods, found his truck, retraced his trip, his path, saw his hard hat helmet on the ground, so he knew he's close. And then they have a picture of him down in the hole looking up. And what did he do? He lifted him up. And he says, that's what friends do. That's what the guy said. They don't, leave him alone. They go out and find him. If one falls, the other one will lift up his companion. But woe to the guy when he falls, there's no one there. Why is woe? Because you're going to die, right? Furthermore, if two lie down together, they keep warm. But how can one be warm alone? There's something about the comfort you can get with, especially a spouse. There's nothing better. That companionship that one can pick one another up and comfort them. And when the other one's down, they return the favor. And it's just the intimacy just in bed, whether it's not sexual, it's just being next to someone. Then he says, there's security. Can you overpower one who, you can't overpower one who's alone, but when there's two or more, two can resist him. So then he says a cord of three isn't easily broken. A cord of three, what is that? It's a rope that has not one strand woven together, but not two, but three. And the strength, the tensile strength and all that multiplies when you get together. So like when you go to Africa, I know there's someone in this audience, his initials are Richard. He says, why are you going to Africa? And a lot of people express that, and he says, it's safe. Are you going to live there or die? Well, yes, first of all, it is safe. But it's like anywhere else in the United States, are there certain places you don't want to go downtown alone after dark? But could you go in a group and be safe, relatively safe? And that's one of the rules. We don't go anywhere alone. You always have usually a local with you. And so the people recognize, there's a white man, but he's got a local resident here, and they just leave you alone. But if you're there by yourself, you can get harassed, all right? That's what he's talking about here. That don't live life alone. Build relationships. Because they're more important than anything else. The only thing we're going to take to heaven is our faith, hopefully our family, and our friends. It's the only thing. Can't take anything else. All right, let's finish this up. Now he says, I've seen this wisdom and folly thing. He's back to that. A poor yet wise lad is better than an old foolish king who no longer knows how to receive instruction. So being a king, and maybe kings got together in little treaty sessions or big meetings, but did he see foolish kings in his day? Obviously. That you can't tell them anything. They're just going to do what they want. Sadly, Solomon's own son was that, right? He wouldn't take wisdom, and ended up dividing the kingdom. But he says, a poor, wise lad is better off than a foolish king. Then he says he's come out of prison to become king, even though he's born poor in his kingdom. Then he says there's another thing that is vanity. I've seen living under the sun those thronged to the side of the second lad who replaces him, that came out of prison. So I imagine this was a real life thing he saw. Some kid that was put in prison because the former king oppressed him or because he spoke out, whatever. That young man gets out of prison and somehow rises to be the new king. And everyone loves him, right? Have you seen that? Where everyone loves the new political leader. How fickle is that fame or that approval of that new leader? Is it always lasting, or will the population turn on you as quickly as they supported you? And that's what Solomon's going to say next. I saw it, but there's no end to all the people who were before him. And even the ones who came later will not be happy with him. This is vanity. They liked you one day, and the next day what? They're ready to kill you. Now, did that happen a lot in their day? Kings were being murdered all the time. You look in the Old Testament, they're being murdered. Look at the Roman government being killed by their own inner people. So he says, it's fickle. There's some of the observations he's made. Now, next week we'll pick up, and Brian's doing it, and we're talking about Brad is doing chapter 5. So I want you to read chapter 5 and 6. Any questions as we bring this to a close? Yes?
You sort of skipped over verse 6 of chapter 4.
Okay. Did I do that on purpose? Oh, I did. It was right up there too. I love that verse. Verse 6 of chapter 4. One handful of rest is better than 2 fistful of labor and striving after wind. One hand of rest, rather 2 fistful of labor. What's he saying? Balance.
I mean, the old law, what did God require this? He put it into their law. It takes the
Seventh day rest.
1 day out of 7. I don't know if that's the magic ratio or not.
So you mentioned earlier the guy that's just, begging off the street, but what is he doing all day? Kicking back. People are taking care of him. Now that's going to be extreme one way, but is he in many ways better off than the guy that's working him to death? I remember the Japanese word, work to death. Literally they die because of overwork. Which is better off? Well, I don't want to be either, but it's finding balance, right? Find some rest and joy in your life. All right, good one. Thank you for drawing attention. Anything else? All right, thank you.